Hey, what's up? So I'm guessing when you saw the title of today's video, you thought, my goodness, Todd has finally gone off the deep end. What are you talking about, made-up girlfriend? I don't have a made-up girlfriend. What is this nonsense? What are you even talking about? This comes from a very interesting conversation I had with a client that was actually incredibly informative in terms of highlighting some of the most important ideas of game. So if you do have a fake girlfriend, imaginary girlfriend, made-up girlfriend, anything like that, stay tuned, I can help you. But even if you don't, this is gonna be one of the most informative videos you can possibly watch about some of the deepest ideas in game. And that's why I brought this to you, despite the weird title. So let me explain the situation. I had a client I was talking to recently, and he's had a bit of a one-nightus for a girl who's shown some interest in him off and on, and he's kind of friend-zoned and different things like that. Meanwhile, throughout all this, recently he told the girl that he has a girlfriend when he in fact does not. He did this so he'd appear non-needy, so he'd appear abundant, so he'd appear like more, in demand, those kind of things. And there is some logic to it, but now he's in this very interesting situation of he's trying to go ahead and date the girl, and now he has to decide how to break up with the imaginary girlfriend, or if she breaks up with him, or how to frame the whole thing, or if he should stay with her and then like cheat on his made-up girlfriend. And this whole thing gets to a lot of really interesting kind of insights about female psychology and how the whole thing works. So let's talk about these various ideas. First of all, I want to talk about the psychology of like why it might even work, why it might even be useful to create an imaginary or made-up girlfriend for yourself. I'm not saying you should do this. I am absolutely 100% not saying that this is good game or something you should do, but there are a couple valid theories or valid ideas of why someone might try it. This is the kind of thing you'd see in like a sitcom, right? Some middle school or high school sitcom, someone creates an imaginary girlfriend. But regardless, there are some good reasons. And one of the big ones is that social proof, the idea of being attractive to other women, is one of the absolute most attractive qualities that you can have in a woman's eyes, right? It's considered an honest signal. If some other girl likes you, or if girls in general seem to like you, it seems like you are a high value guy. Also, by appearing to have a girlfriend, you would come off potentially as less needy, less try-hard, having less of an agenda, more hard to get, all of these different types of things. So there are some very solid reasons why saying something like, I have a girlfriend might be useful. Let's look at the reasons why it might not be so good. Well, it's something that you're gonna have to extricate yourself from. Because if you do have a girlfriend and then you hook up with this other girl, you look like a bit of a scumbag, right? And you're starting that relationship with some seed of kind of distrust or dishonorableness or some lack of integrity. And that's probably not gonna go well for a lot of girls, especially if your end goal is a monogamous solid relationship or something like that. So it can be not the best idea, obviously, to get into. But on a deeper level, there's another reason why I really don't like this, which is I don't like dishonesty about yourself in game in general, for a couple reasons. One is, if you're ever caught lying, you are screwed. Imagine the situation, you told a girl you had a girlfriend when you didn't, and then she later finds out that you in fact don't have one. It looks so super lame, so awful, so manipulative, so creepy, you are just flat out done. And so it's just a bad idea on that level. Also, in terms of how you're viewing yourself, the idea that you feel you need to lie or change the details of your life or change the details of yourself to be impressive to a girl, it's just saying bad things to yourself. It's fundamentally going to eat away at your self-esteem. It's fundamentally saying to yourself that you're not enough, which is a terrible message to be conveying. So even if you can kind of justify, I just said this to get a result or whatever, the idea that you think you need to lie will probably hurt your game more than the lie itself will help your game in almost all cases, because it is very hard for the truth not to shine through. There's this idea in game that the self is always coming through. Very much true. Very much if you believe you're the person that feels you need to lie and change yourself to justify yourself to the girl, that's going to come through in many, many other behaviors. You're probably going to qualify yourself a lot. You're probably going to be walking on eggshells trying to impress her in other ways. And it's just a bad mentality and a bad way to be looking at the situation. Okay? So those are some of the pros and cons on a technical level in terms of this idea of making up a fake girlfriend. And again, I'm strongly saying don't do it. I'm saying first of all, don't lie in game in general, but also this particular lie, it's not very good. And all the good things you can get from this lie, you can get from a lot of other things that are far less binding and far less untrue. But the real question came up when he was asking how to get rid of the fake girlfriend. And he had a terrible idea, which was that the girlfriend broke up with him. And his idea, and this is an idea that a lot of guys who are kind of like nice guys or who are kind of like not very well versed in game or not very experienced would have, which is if she broke up with him, now there's sympathy and the girl might want to comfort him and might, might want to make him feel better, and in doing that, something might happen between them. And this is the ultimate like nice guy thought, like nice guy kind of, it works in the movies, but it never works in real life, sort of a fantasy. Please, please, please disabuse yourself of this notion. And what I said to him is like, listen, people usually massage the narrative of their breakups and make it more favorable to them. But there's usually two sides to the story, right? In this case, you should never have been in the situation, but in this case, you have the absolute ability, you have the absolute and total authority to make up whatever narrative you want, and nobody's ever going to dispute it because there is no other side. There's no girl to dispute your narrative because this girl doesn't exist. So you may as well create the best possible narrative you can. And this gets to the core idea in game that I talk about a lot, which is the idea of narrative. Because narrative, what does it mean? It means telling a story, specifically telling the story of you. And in telling someone you have a fake girlfriend, you are telling a story of you. Again, not recommended, but he has started this story, so now he needs to finish the story. And how could he finish the story? Well, there's a few options. One, she breaks up with him. Let's get rid of that because that makes him look less desirable, so let's not start there. Second is he breaks up with her, but if it seems like arbitrary or capricious or cruel or insensitive or unfeeling, that makes him look kind of bad. If he seems angry or whatever, that makes him look reactive. So these are all kind of problematic. If he says bad things about her, or says negative things about her, that makes a girl think that he has bad relationships with his exes, that like things are toxic, etc. That said, if he's saying really nice things about her, like too nice about her, then it kind of looks like he's still hung up on her, and so that's all problematic. So you need to be thinking about the ramifications of all these different things. In general, just for an answer to this question, what I essentially suggested to him was to suggest that they just kind of weren't seeing eye to eye, and she probably wanted more from him than he was willing to put forward. And he still thinks she's a wonderful person and they have a great time together and stuff, but he just didn't want to lead her on, didn't want to hurt her, and so he felt it was best that they ended. I think that's probably the best framing I could think of for how to end up breaking up with, your fake imaginary girlfriend. That's probably the best scenario you can give. And I do recommend getting past it. I don't think you should string that narrative along. But there was another thing, which is this girl seems to have a blueprint of going after taken guys. And so he was saying, well, if this girl does go after taking guys, maybe I should keep the girlfriend and I should just cheat on her or let her seduce me away or something like that. And I said that's maybe viable, that there's some valid argument to that. But if that's the case, you at least want to indicate that it's on the rocks or it's not good so that you preserve some integrity. And you don't really want to milk it. Like, let's get to the point and get done with this lie as soon as possible so you can proceed forward in an honest relationship. That's what you really, really want. But then I brought up another point, and I think this is very, very important, is that while this girl may appear to go for taking guys or unavailable guys, and a lot of girls do that, right? They'll go for the guy that's married, the guy who just doesn't care about them at all, the guy who treats them like shit. A lot of girls do that. But the problem, or not the problem, the fact is they don't actually like that behavior. They like the positive elements of that behavior, right? So a girl may go after an unattainable guy because of the feeling of chasing. But she'd go after a guy who can make her chase who isn't actually factually unattainable because they're married, right? Or a girl may go with a guy who treats her like shit because so many other guys are kissing her ass, or so many other guys are falling into her frame and are not a challenge for her at all. But if she could find a guy who is equally a challenge and equally emotionally stimulating, who doesn't treat her like shit, she actually probably would go with that guy. And so what I encourage them to do is, while considering the girl's blueprint, you definitely should look at the choices she's made. You definitely should look at the guys she's with and the guys she seems to be attracted to. But don't just carbon copy it. Don't become like these guys are like, this guy's like the natural version of a guy who, like a real guy who's married or a real guy who treats her like shit. First of all, if you try and copy that, you're going to be the worst version of it because that's not who you naturally are. Secondly, it's not you, so it's going to be fake and you're going to be incongruent and it's not who you naturally are. Thirdly, it's damaging and harmful for her, so it's going to be fundamentally a toxic relationship. Why would you start a relationship meaning to make it toxic? Instead, think about what are the reasons she's making the decision and think, how can I have all the positives of that without the negatives? How can I make myself the better version instead of the poor copy of the version she's already gone for? So if the girl does, for example, go after married men or go after unattainable men, don't be the guy who's married and cheating to be unattainable. Be the guy who's unattainable because you're busy in your life and you're aloof and you have better things to do and there are a lot of other girls into you and you just kind of don't take it that seriously. That's a much better framing around the exact same emotional response, right? And so understand that with any of these things, you're hitting emotional triggers. All pretty much every element of game, pretty much everything you're doing to move something forward in the interaction, whether it is developing attraction, developing comfort, figuring out logistics, it's all based on certain emotional triggers. And what you'd like to do is hit those triggers in their purest form without a lot of baggage and negativity around them. So you want to understand the triggers for themselves rather than copying this whole broad scenario just to get some minor trigger. So to recap, first of all, don't lie in game, okay? It's okay to present your best qualities. It's okay to choose the qualities of yourself you are presenting. For example, if you are sort of into the gym and this girl's really, really into the gym, it's definitely okay to present to her that you like the gym because that is true about you, right? If you also like, sitting on the couch and eating potato chips, you don't necessarily have to present that to her right away. She can find that out later. Or you can actually maybe improve yourself and get rid of that negative trait and actually let that relationship be a catalyst for even you improving yourself. But the point is, you can definitely select from the characteristics you have in terms of how you present yourself, and you can definitely tell the story in the best possible way, but do not fundamentally outright lie. One, you will be caught oftentimes and it will come back to haunt you. And two, you can't lie to yourself, and the incongruence you're creating in yourself is going to be bad for your self-perception, bad for your self-esteem, bad for all those kind of things. And also, you probably will be incongruent. So please, first and foremost, don't lie in game. It can appear to work at first, but in the long run, it's a recipe for disaster. Secondly, when talking about narrative, think about the stories you are telling, right? So the facts matter, but almost every fact can be conveyed in very, very different ways. Right? So for example, breaking up with a girlfriend can be framed as she didn't like you and she got over you and you were boring, and that's probably a very negative frame. Breaking up with your girlfriend can be framed as she wanted too much from you and she's coming on too strong and you just weren't ready for that. That's a very different framing of it. And there might be a lot of other ones. For example, another very easy one is you're moving to different cities or states for job purposes and it's just, isn't working because it's long distance. That'd be another framing this guy could use, for example. Right? So there's all kinds of different framings around the same set of facts. And you have a choice. Whenever you're telling a story, whenever you're giving your side of events, please be your own advocate. Please don't be the person hamstringing yourself or like cutting yourself down or cutting your own value down. There's plenty of other things in the world that are going to attempt to cut your value down. There's plenty of other guys that will talk to the girl and try and badmouth you, etc. Please don't be your own adversary, okay? So when you have the free reign to tell the story in the most favorable way that you honestly can. And then finally, blueprint. Blueprint is absolutely important when you get to an advanced level, right? First and foremost is be an attractive guy. That'll get you to intermediate. Once you're already an attractive guy, taking those traits and merging them, kind of massaging them into the idea of blueprint and what the girl is deeply looking for will make your game better. But understand that blueprint is not this you're not trying to meet this complicated, fixed algorithm that exists of exactly what she's dated before, exactly what she's done before. What you're trying to do is you're trying to highlight the few key elements and make sure that you're hitting those key elements. But there are 1,000 different ways that you could hit any one particular element. There's 1,000 different ways to be socially in demand. There's 1,000 different ways to be accomplished. There's 1,000 different ways to be competent. There are 1,000 different ways to be someone who seems to get a good social response, and any other kind of characteristic you can think of that is positive. There are tons and tons and tons of different ways to convey it, and you probably have some of them. So pick some honest ones and stick to what you are, and also pick out only the gems. Don't take all the nonsense that comes along with it. Don't become the poor man's version of what she's already had by copying it. Instead, figure out the parts that she loves about it and give her an even better package that she's never seen before. So that's the way that blueprint should be done. It should be done, one, honestly and congruently with who you are, and two, with only taking the best parts or the most useful parts of the blueprint instead of blindly copying everything. So those are a lot of really interesting points from this very silly question. So I liked it. I thought it really caught my attention. I hope it caught your attention. And I hope from this sort of ridiculous sounding question that even the student laughed when he asked it and I laughed, when I responded to it. But then we started talking and I was like, you know what? There are actually a lot of good lessons in this. And I hope you've taken some of those lessons from this video. Until next time, take care. See you later.